Welcome back to Cody Builds and welcome to the official recap of the 2026 Hot Rod Power Tour. Now, if you've never done the Hot Rod Power Tour, you might want to stay tuned because I'm going to go through the good, the bad, and what I learned as a first timer out on the road for Hot Rod Power Tour. It seems like everybody likes to talk about the negative side of things these days, so let's talk about the bad side of Power Tour right up front. Now, I'm going to start by saying I have very few complaints about how this event was organized, ran, any of that, but I want to talk about a few things that I've seen as the most common complaints, and I'll address them with my opinions. Let's start with the number one complaint that I hear most often, whether that's on forums or while I was in person at the event, and that is waiting in lines. Whether it's waiting in line for registration, waiting in lines in traffic jams in small towns, waiting in lines for t-shirts, waiting in lines for food, just in general, waiting in lines. I would say that while this can be a frustrating thing, you are in an event with 5,000 to 10,000 people at any given point in time in vehicles. So there are things that you should expect, and one of those things is being in traffic jams, waiting to be parked, those types of things. Now, I know that the Hot Rod Magazine staff was doing their absolute best to get us in and out of venues and parked. And one of my probably only complaints is that some of those venues probably could have opened up an extra gate or two, but I know that that's not all within Hot Rod Magazine's control. Some of that is the venue, some of that is local law enforcement. All of those factors come together in a big event like this. And so I really don't think it's a symptom of poor organization. I think it's trying to jam so many cars into one venue at the end of the day that leads to a lot of these problems. Now, as far as the route goes, yes, you are going to get into small towns. There's going to be stop signs, traffic lights, construction through these little towns. But one of the things that I learned on this trip is you don't have to follow the route. You can actually bypass a lot of the little towns if you want. Now, the thing is, inside a lot of those little towns are a lot of the sites that you can see, the pictures that you can take, all those types of things. So, yeah, you may want to wait for some of those stops, but after you got some pictures, maybe you want to cruise a mile outside of town through the country, go a mile up, cut a mile back over, and completely skip that town. We did that on a number of occasions, and it made our trip so much better. We saw all kinds of stuff out in the country, and we weren't alone. We were doing it with a number of other guys, even though Dad and I did not have any arrangements to meet up with anyone before we started the Hot Rod Power Tour. So it just kind of naturally, once you're using your GPS, it's going to tell you to go a route, and that is the same thing it's going to be telling 15 other guys. So the next thing you know, you're out in the middle of nowhere, cornfields around you, not on gravel roads, but darn near. They're tar and chip roads, and you're just ripping out in the country with 15 other hot rods, and it was a blast. It was one of the things that I actually enjoyed the most about the trip. So you can take those lines and you can kind of say, I don't have to go through towns. I don't have to do all that kind of little stuff. So is it a complaint? Sure. If you're an impatient person, if you don't like waiting in lines, if you don't like being in traffic, yeah, maybe that's a problem for you. I would say skip Hot Rod Power Tour. Maybe it's not the event for you. You're going to be missing out on so much more, and we're going to talk about some of that later on. Now, one of probably my actual complaints about the whole event, and again, I'm not blaming Hot Rod Magazine. It's more of a function of how they have to operate things. But one of the things that we fell into, the traps that we fell into, is we'd get in a line and we'd stand in that line until we were parked. And often the attendants are just trying to get you parked in the closest spot available. And what that means is they're parking people at the front at the start of the day and working their way back, and they're never returning back to the front of the parking lot. So we often found that we were parked all the way at the back of the venue, like as far away from the action as we could be, when there were hundreds and hundreds of spots available much closer to the track. So what we kind of learned there is let the attendants park you, wait a few minutes, get right back out on the road and try and get yourself up a little bit closer, or even walk up and see if there's spots available and move your car up. That was like a big thing that we noticed. Most of the guys that get there right at 11 o'clock or noon early in the day, they're only at the track for maybe an hour or two and they leave. So all those close parking spots were abandoned by 1, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But due to the way that they're parking people were still getting parked further and further away from the venue. So maybe just a mild thing to consider from Hot Rod Magazine, you know, every so often checking this, checking the lots to see what's available and ushering some guys a lot closer up to the action instead of making people park all the way at the back of the venue. Such a minor complaint though, guys. Don't let me talking about this fool you. It really is a minor thing, and almost every single day we're able to move our vehicle up closer without any flack from any parking attendants or anything like that. So, you know, that's probably the biggest complaints I heard. I throw the third one out there, and this is a major one. It's not one to take lightly, and it's not the fault, again, it's not the fault of Hot Rod Magazine. And that is, there were a number of vehicles stolen in Joliet, Illinois. Now, I'm from Illinois. I'm from 40 minutes away from Joliet. I know Joliet can be a little bit on the rougher side, but I don't even know so much that it has to do with the regular routine crime that's going on down in Joliet, so much as it is that there is a giant target on our backs for an event like this. There are 5,000 hot rods that show up at a minimum. As many as 7,000 or 8,000 is the numbers that I've seen thrown around. And it's advertised where we're going, where we're staying every single night. This is not the first event that's had this problem. You can go look through Hot Rod Drag Week, Sick Week, any number of events like this where it is a traveling circus of cars. We're targeted. And the fact of the matter is that we need to be vigilant about those things. And there's only so much that the venue, Hot Rod Magazine, the hotel, there's only so much they can do. Now, what I will say is that word spread pretty fast about all those stolen vehicles, even to all of the next few cities that we went to. One of my good friends that I met with in Champaign is a dispatcher for the city of Champaign, and he said that they were getting warnings about the stolen cars very early, and that Champaign was ramping up some of its efforts to help cut down on any of those types of activities. Now, as far as I know, there weren't any vehicles stolen the rest of the week, so it really is unfortunate. And they were targeting newer vehicles, so keep that in mind if you're driving, you know, a newer Corvette, Mustang, certainly a Hellcat product, as much as those get stolen, Camaro, something like that. Maybe you want to be a little extra vigilant. I even saw when we were down in, I think it was down in Springfield, Missouri, I saw a guy who had run a cable lock through all 4 of his wheels and had it locked up. So, you know, little precautions like that, pulling the coil wire, any type of stuff like that that you can do to maybe deter some theft is going to go a long ways to helping you out there. Now, obviously that is on such a small scale compared to all the people that are there, but it is, you know, obviously a negative about an event like this, and there's only so much you can do to protect your vehicle. So something to keep in mind if you're planning on coming out to Power Tour. Now let's talk about the good. I mean, there's a lot to talk about in the good column, and the number one thing is just the people. I would say the coolest thing about this event is the people you meet, the friends you make, whether it's parked at the venue, it's parked at a gas station, parked at the hotel. There's just so many cool people, so many cool vehicles to see. You know, just, it's an incredible, if you're an automotive enthusiast at all, I would recommend doing this. I mean, the only way I would tell you not to is if you just absolutely can't stand lines, like I said before, being in traffic. But the cool thing for me is, like, even when you're in traffic, it's all hot rods around you. It's just, it's so cool. It was such a cool thing. So definitely the people. People are incredible. The drive. Guys, Hot Rod Magazine does a great job of laying out the route for us, being able to provide GPS waypoints and all that stuff with Google Maps. But the thing is, you don't need to follow the route exactly as it's written. If you want to, that's great, but just know that it's going to take you longer to get to the venue. But really, to me, what I learned was the venues are cool. They're a neat thing to see. There's cool vendors. You get to talk to people. You get to see a lot of cars. But for me, the driving experience is what this event is all about. So if you're not taking advantage of the route or your own little side quests, your own little side trips, if you're just blasting down the interstate to get from venue to venue, then I think you're missing out. That's my opinion. Obviously, some guys are going to say that they go for the venue and that's what they want to sit there and they want to be the first one through the gate and check the box and move on to the next one. But for me, it's like all about that drive. And I was really fortunate to have my dad with me. We had such an awesome time. We got to talk about a ton of stuff. We got to see a ton of stuff. We got to do it in Ellsworth, my 1975 F-150. So It was just such a good time. So really, this to me, this thing is all about the drive. Another positive to me. So some guys are going to complain about the price, right? And they're going to say, well, I paid $250 and why am I not being waited on hand and foot? Consider this, guys. 4 of the 5 venues we went to, now some of this was canceled by weather, unfortunately, but 4 of the 5 venues we went to had either drag racing, autocross, or both. So you break it down, $250 split over 4 days. You're looking around somewhere just north of $60 a day to basically make passes all day long or autocross your vehicle all day long. Like, that's kind of a steal in and of itself. Not to mention, you get some free swag, all the stickers, the license plate, the goodie bag from Hot Rod Power Tour. Not to mention, you're in an incredibly diverse car show every single day. Not to mention the vendors and all the freebies you can get at each stop every single day. So is it worth the $250? Heck yes. I think it's a bargain for an event like this. When you think about, you can say, okay, well, there's so many cars and they're making so much money on each car. But think about this, guys. The money to rent each of those venues, the money to pay staff, the money to pay traffic control, all of those things, like, I can't even imagine the logistics of planning an event like this. Like, it is really impressive when it comes down to it. The fact that they can guide 5,000 to 8,000 people in their vehicles across about 1,000 miles with relatively few incidents. Man, I think that's just incredible, and I think Hot Rod Magazine does an incredible job, and I was really impressed, to be honest with you, with how things run. I know not everyone will agree with me on that. Some people will say, that the lines were too long, the traffic's backing up, they should have done this, should have done that. Well, like I said, guys, there's so much you have to consider about these events, working with local law enforcement, working with the venues, that I don't stack all of that on Hot Rod Magazine. The other side of the thing is, like, have a little bit of patience. I mean, honestly, like, there's so many people around that it's just impressive how they're able to move people in and out of the venues all day long. So what else was good about it? The cars, for sure. One of the most diverse groupings of cars you will ever see. There is something for everybody, from classic 32 Ford hot rods all the way to brand new Corvettes, Mustangs, exotics. Saw all kinds of stuff. Some really, really cool cars. My personal favorite, the Volkswagen Beetle Gasser, had an Illinois plate on it. It had a Pepsi livery, Pepsi trailer. It had the red plexiglass windows. Like, it was so freaking cool. Such a unique vehicle. And for sure, he went from Joliet all the way down to St. Louis. He might have just been a multi-day driver, but he took a gasser, straight axle gasser, from Joliet all the way down to St. Louis and then back home. That's pretty badass in itself. I mean, that was really cool. If you're someone and you're here on YouTube watching my channel, if you're someone who likes YouTube, there's a lot of access to different YouTubers. I certainly met a number of guys that I've been talking with, and it was really awesome to meet those guys. Cade from Rustomod, Jerry from Faith Family Cars, Craig from F100 World. Who else am I? There's so many guys. Jacob Dewey from Dewey Speed Shop. There were so many guys that I met. I know I'm for sure leaving some guys out, but it was such a cool opportunity to meet those guys. If you follow any of those guys, even if you follow the bigger channels, I really didn't get to meet Kevin from Junkyard Digs. He was out there, he was accessible. I saw him chopping it up with all kinds of people. Wish I would have got to say hi to him, but wasn't the case. Those guys are out there, they're accessible. I'm out there and accessible. If you enjoy my channel, you like what we do, I would definitely encourage you at any event I'm at to come up and talk to me. And I did get to talk to a few fans, which was awesome. It's the first time I've really gone out and done a big event like that, and to have people come and find me and say, hey, I watch your channel, that was one of the coolest things of the entire event. In addition to that, for me, the positives, QA1 was awesome. Those guys were great. We were parked one day. If you guys don't know, my truck has a full-blown QA1 coilover front and rear suspension conversion kit on it. It's incredible. It rode so smoothly. It was awesome. We were out at Springfield, Illinois. We were parked way back in the boonies. That was an incredible day. I had a crowd of people around that truck all day long. Really awesome people, really excited about what we built, and really excited to talk about the truck. And so that was a lot of fun. And I had this group around me, and this guy comes up and he's like, why are you parked back here? And I'm like, well, because I'm a long hauler and this is where I'm supposed to be parked. And he goes, no, you got a full QA1 setup on your truck. Go up to the QA1 booth, tell those guys what you got. There's a good chance they'll let you park up by the trailer. Now, I know they don't do this for absolutely everybody. They want to see pictures of your vehicle. They want to know that, you know, hey, you actually have their product on your vehicle. They were so nice. They were actually out of passes for the day, and they said, you know what, if we can talk to the guard and he'll let you in, come on in. And the security guard there thankfully actually did let me in. I got to park right up front row in the vendor row. It was awesome. Loved it. I got to it, and that's the point where I got to meet a lot of those YouTubers. Craig from F100 World did a feature on my truck, so you guys should go over and check out his Instagram or YouTube page. You can see that interview on the truck. I believe Jerry from Faith Family Cars is going to be releasing some video of an interview he did on the truck as well. So if you guys want to see, there's more content out there on Old Ellsworth in addition to everything that we've done on my channel. So for me, that was personally awesome, but I would roll that into the vendors. There's access to vendors there. There's access to parts on the trip. Like if you break down, Summit was there. That was pretty cool. I know that if you really got oddball stuff, you certainly want to carry some of your own spares. But if you're running some common parts, the odds are Summit's going to have a lot of what you need out on the road. So that's kind of the good and the bad. Let's talk a little bit about what I learned out on the trip. First things first, you do not need a fancy vehicle. And I kind of knew this already, but you know, in the day of LS swaps and Coyote swaps and this and that, and you got to have a modern transmission and engine and modern suspension and all this stuff, you guys would be shocked at some of the vehicles that made this trip and did it with passed it with flying colors. You do not need anything fancy. Let's start with my truck. Yes, I have fancy suspension. I've got an upgraded transmission. The engine that's in that truck is a $200 Facebook Marketplace block that I rebuilt from scratch right here in my garage. No machine work other than having the crank turned and polished. That's it. I did everything else myself. We did just a standard garage hone on this thing, all new bearings, all new rings, all that stuff. Did it right here in the garage. Built that long block for $1,500, including the $200 we spent to buy the thing off of Facebook Marketplace. So you don't need to spend a fortune to do this, guys. You don't need something modern. Man, that 390 did not skip a beat the entire trip. It did about almost 1,700 miles with flying colors. So I was super proud of that. I'm super happy about that. It was one of my bigger fears going in because almost everything else on the truck mechanically is brand new. And yes, the engine is freshly rebuilt, but I did it myself. And you know, sometimes I don't always have 100% confidence in myself. I probably should have a little more confidence than I do, and I should probably trust the things that I do because I know I try and do them at least in a semi-right way. I don't scab a ton of stuff together. So the fact that we didn't have a hiccup shouldn't be a complete surprise to me, but it was a really nice bonus, and I was really excited that we made it the whole way with very few issues. Now, we did have two minor issues. We had a alternator belt come loose, and that one was a little weird because the belts didn't seem all that loose, but the belts were squealing pretty bad. I actually thought it was a power steering pump locking up. Turned out it was the alternator belt, the tensioner, the lock nuts on that tensioner had backed off, the belt got loose. Quick fix, like a 2-minute fix. Needed a single wrench to make that happen. So we got that fixed, and then we started having still some charging issues. And what that turned out to be was the stud on the back of the alternator. Now, unfortunately, we bought and replaced a battery because I thought we'd fried a battery because it was partially charging, wasn't fully charging. But every time we come to a stop with the fans on, the battery would just go down and down and down. It was getting down to like 11.4, 11.3 volts. And that was kind of scary because that's got a Terminator ECU in the truck, and that thing is very sensitive to voltage changes. And so I was kind of worried we were going to get stranded down in Rantoul. Ended up not being a problem. We ended up putting a new battery in it, and again, it was still doing the same kind of thing. So the next day, that's when we discovered that that stud on the back of the alternator, it was like a quarter turn loose. I tightened it up. It wasn't actually the wire. The wire was tight on the stud itself, but the stud itself had backed out of the alternator. So once we tightened that down, smooth sailing the rest of the trip. All that happened on day one. We did not have one single issue the rest of the trip. So I packed a bunch of spare parts and stuff like that. I'm not upset about that. I will continue to pack those things when we go because you never know what can happen on the road. So what did I see as the most common breakdown? So obviously number one was overheating. So if you're thinking about doing this and your vehicle struggles to stay cool during the summer, you got to rethink some things. You got to get a better radiator, you got to get better fans. You got to figure that out before you go, because the number one thing that was happening out there was overheating, and it wasn't just the junkers out there. It was a lot of really nice rides. So think about that. If you can't sit in a dead stop on a 95-degree day in a line of vehicles, then you got to consider how you can improve the cooling on your vehicle, because you're not always going to be able to be moving in this event. Like I said, even to get into the venue, sometimes it's 45 minutes to an hour in line of cars just to get parked. So think about that. Be prepared for that, and you'll be fine. Besides that, the next most common issue I heard about was actually people boiling fuel in their fuel lines. So they're getting vapor lock. That was really a big problem. So you might want to think about insulating your fuel lines. Check out Heat Shield products. Or if you're running a carburetor on an old cast iron intake, you might want to consider putting like a phenolic spacer between the carb and the intake. Taking little precautions like that can go a long ways. Those were kind of the minimal, like smaller type issues that I heard a lot of people running into. As far as like the major issues that I heard most often or read about most often, I saw a lot of differential problems, whether that's axle bearings or actual exploding differentials. And then I saw a lot of transmission problems. So you got a slipping transmission, need something like that, maybe you might want to reconsider, because it is going to be hot, it is going to be brutal. Maybe you consider adding a transmission cooler in, even though you've never really needed it if you're running an automatic transmission. As far as the rear differentials, I guess all I can say about that is just make sure you're servicing your vehicles before you go on this trip. You are going to be thrashing them for at least a minimum of 800 to 1,000 miles, plus whatever it takes to get there and to get back. So it's no joke. It is a lot of driving. It's hard on the vehicles, and the best thing you can do is just prepare ahead of time. And I would say the next most important thing I learned, I've already said it a couple times, is this event is all about the drive. There were a couple times early on where I got a little worried about us making it to the end destination in time to get our badges punched, because if you don't get your badges punched, you don't get that fancy long hauler plaque. And I was really concerned about that. So then the next few days I was like, we got to be up early, we got to get on the road, we got to get to the venue. Well, then we got to the venue super early, and it's like, well, we can't really sit here. We're not going to sit here for 5 hours. So I guess what I learned about all of that is the most important thing about this trip is the drive. So make the drive what you want it to be. And that's not the same for every single person. There were plenty of people that wanted to stop at every picture opportunity, stop in every little town, stop in the shops. If you like doing that, by all means do that. Just know you need to be up super early if you want to be at the venue by 5 o'clock, because there were a few days there where I don't know how you would have made 3, 4, 5 stops and got to the venue at 5 o'clock, just due to the distance, your start time, the backups, all of those kinds of things. So keep that in mind. If you're a person who wants to see the sights, do all that stuff, you need to plan accordingly, and just be prepared that you're probably not going to be in the venue until much later in the afternoon. That's okay if that's what you're wanting to get out of it. If you're somebody who just likes to drive and you don't care so much about passing through all the little towns, you can make yourself up some really cool routes, and if you're traveling with buddies, even better. If you're not and you want to bypass all the little towns, you're always going to be in and amongst hot rods and muscle cars and everything else. So that's pretty neat in and of itself. But whatever you do, just make sure you're making it about the drive, because that is what this event is all about. That might be an obvious thing, but as a first timer, I was really leaning more heavily into like the venues were going to be the cool thing. And the thing about those venues is, like, if you're not doing the drag racing or the autocross on every single trip, and we weren't on this one because, for one, I just did not want to push the truck. Like, I was scared to push the truck. It was just me and Dad, and if something broke, then we were going to have a hard time getting back home without renting a U-Haul and a trailer, which we saw plenty of that as well. So if you're not doing those things, like the vendors are mostly the same. I don't want to say the cars are the same every day, but if you're traveling at the same time every single day, you're going to be traveling in a similar pack of vehicles every single day. We did notice that. We're seeing a lot of the same cars out on the road, and that's because those people had the same schedule as us. They were taking the same type of trip as us. So you get in and amongst the same kind of vehicles. So when you get to the venue, it's a lot of vehicles you've seen or people you know. Very cool. That's all cool. And it's great to hang out there and talk to everybody, but 5 days of doing that in the heat, the sweltering heat, maybe that's another thing that I learned. But in the heat, like it can wear on you. And so rather than spend half your day at the venue, I would say make more of your trip about that. And that's another thing that I learned was, the Power Tour happens in the dead of summer. It was 94 and humid when we were in St. Louis. It was brutal. We didn't have AC. As long as we were moving, it was no problem at all, to be honest with you. Don't let that scare you. But be prepared in every other way. Like, we had a cooler full of Gatorade and water all day, every day. We were pounding water and Gatorade, and even still, I felt like I got a little heat stroke and dehydrated when we were down in St. Louis. It was just so oppressively hot, and the heat was coming up off the asphalt. So sunscreen, hydrate for sure. Sunscreen. I burned the crap out of my legs, the back of my legs of all things. Every driver had the driver tan on the driver's side on their left arm. That was kind of funny on the first days, everyone being red. All the drivers, you could tell who they were because they were red on the left side, and all the passengers were red on their right side. So that was kind of funny, but those are the types of things that you may not be thinking about that you definitely want to consider, like sunscreen, water, Gatorade, staying hydrated, keeping yourself healthy on the road. For sure, those are some things that I learned. So that's pretty much it, guys. That's the good, the bad, the ugly, what I learned. Like, if you are a car enthusiast, I think this event has to be on your bucket list. Maybe you do it once and you don't want to do it again. I know Dad and I are already planning out next year's trip. We're thinking about what vehicles we're going to be driving next year. I'm already thinking 2 years down the line. I've got a couple vehicles in mind that I want to build out for future Power Tour events, because that's kind of the way I want to treat this. I want to try and do this trip at least with one of us having a different vehicle every single year that we do it. Even if we don't do it in back-to-back years, it's every other year, something like that. I think this is an incredible challenge as a builder to test your skills. How well can you put a vehicle together? How well can you maintain the vehicle? How well can you repair the vehicle out on the road? It is a grueling test for the drivers, the vehicles, but I absolutely loved it, and Dad and I for sure will be back for more. So that's pretty much it, guys. If you have questions or comments or anything that you want to know about the Hot Rod Power Tour, drop them down below in the comments section. Be sure, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and like to the channel. If you're interested in merch, go check out codybuilds.com. I've got some t-shirts, can koozies, stickers, that type of stuff out there. But most of all, if you don't work on your projects, they will not work on themselves. So get out in the garage, get building, and I'll see you on the next episode of Cody Builds.